Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julia King. I'm the Communications Manager with the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts. Ellie Wells is the Vermont Agricultural Water Quality Partnership Coordinator, but she's not able to be with us today, so I will do my best to guide us through it. We still have a couple people joining from the waiting room, but I'll just get started. I will share my screen with a couple slides about the partnership. So as I said, we're here today because of the Vermont Agricultural Water Quality Partnership. We recently redid the 5-year strategic plan, so these uh, slides are pulled from that. You can go on the website to learn more. But one of our objectives is to ensure staff training across the partner organizations, which is why we do these lunch and learns. And they're all recorded, so if you're never able to make one, or if you just want to go back and see what's been presented before, you can access them all on the website. The partnership is made up of 9 entities from federal and state partners. I could list them all, but we have their lovely logos up there for you guys to see. And hopefully you've attended the annual meeting, maybe this past March, or you've been to one of the regional coordination meetings. So you've gotten to see a lot of people from the different partners. Today we've got the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets presenting about their Pay for Performance program. So I will stop sharing so you're not staring at these partners anymore. And I'm going to pass it off to Jamie, Judson, and Sumner to share about the program. And we do ask that you just hold your questions till the end. We've got some slides to go through there. Maybe they'll answer your questions. And if not, there'll be plenty of time at the end for questions that people have. And Jamie, we can see your slides perfectly.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie, and I'm here with Judson Peck and also Sumner Kravitz, and we work on the Pay for Performance program. So we're going to talk about the last 4 years of the pilot program, some important takeaways, and then we will also share some updates on the future of the program. So this program was developed to address ongoing water quality issues, focusing on phosphorus runoff from agricultural fields. And conservation programs traditionally pay farmers for installing specific practices, such as cover crops or buffers, practices that are important to water quality, but the real world impact of those practices is not one size fits all. And every farm is different, and the same practices on 2 different farms can have a very different real world impact on water quality. And so this program is different in that it's the first program with performance-based payments. And so it pays for the actual performance of those installed practices rather than for installing them in the first place. This program was funded by USDA, and it was created with 4 main guiding goals. The first is the TMDL reduction and stewardship. The TMDL is a total maximum daily load, or the amount of phosphorus the basin can handle before there are negative impacts. And this program also emphasized long-term stewardship and focused on priority areas where improvements would have the greatest impact. There was also farmer buy-in, where the whole farm performance focus of the program was to allow farmers the flexibility to make decisions to meet their phosphorus reduction goals in ways that will work for their individual farm and their farm circumstances and management practices. To achieve verifiable, measurable, location-specific outcomes, we partnered with Stone Environmental and used a web-based application called Farm Prep. And Farm Prep models the farm on a field-by-field basis and provides information about the phosphorus loss on each field, which enables a more targeted approach. And lastly, this program enrolled farms of all sizes and different production types and only paid on results that were verified at federal standards. Here's an overview of what the timeline looked like. The initial application process led into phase one, which was the data entry process, where after farms were accepted, the farm was matched with a technical assistance provider who helped enter their field data into farm prep, and this received a payment of up to $4,000 to compensate farmers for their time and effort. And during this data entry phase, a farm prep assessment was run to determine their approximate phosphorus loss and what their payment would look like in the future of the program, and if they were a good match to continue. And if the program would lead to them receiving a payment, they would continue into phase two, which is the phosphorus reduction grant. And this was the main part of the program. And this included phosphorus reduction payments, which were $100 a pound, $100 per pound of phosphorus loss above a 40% threshold that I'll go over in a minute, and also an additional stewardship payment, which was either $3 or $8 an acre, depending on the whole farm average loss of pounds of phosphorus per acre. And so the baseline was the 40% threshold was for paying farms that went above and beyond. And so this light green area on the chart here, that was an estimate of the phosphorus reduction that is a result of existing programs. And Pay for Performance paid farms for additional reductions beyond that amount that could be captured by existing programs. And so Pay for Performance's goal was to pay farms for going above and beyond. Oh, and now I'll let Judson continue with some of the data.
Hello, everyone. My name is Judson, also with the agency. And we're just swapping presenters. So I'm going to go over some high-level summary stats for this program for the first 3 years. Or last year, 2025 is done, but still under review. Team is finishing it up. So who participated in our program? We had 70 farms, over 4,000 unique fields, and on average 31,000 acres per year. As you can see from the map, we had farms from most of the state. There was a concentration in Franklin County, as you can see. There was a variety of farm sizes, types, and crops, as you can see by the graphs below. Like much of agriculture in the state, it was dominated by dairy farms growing grass, hay, and corn silage. So the farms have a variety of management, and these graphs depict across the years what the annual crop management was. So you can see half was in no-till, another half, nearly half was in manure injection, and 3/4 were being cover cropped. So this is important context for the phosphorus loss results that you will see. So as mentioned, this program is performance-based, and that performance is modeled using Apex and then accessed via the Farm Prep web user interface. So Apex is a process-based model, which means it simulates natural processes such as crop growth and nutrient runoff. It has been calibrated using edge of field monitoring studies in Vermont. The phosphorus loss results are edge of field. The data inputs are modeled for 30 years, and therefore the results are the annual average for the entire crop rotation. We are also looking at total phosphorus loss, which includes sediment, soluble, and tile P loss. And on the right, you can see some very high-level factors that the model is incorporating, everything from weather, soil slope, the crops, the tillage, nutrient applications, etc. So to be clear, each field on every farm, we are modeling a baseline management scenario and the resulting phosphorus loss based on assumptions from the TMDL. Then we are also modeling the farm's current management phosphorus loss. And then the difference between those two phosphorus loss numbers gives us the reduction in phosphorus loss. So these graphs, I have color-coded phosphorus loss in pounds per acre, with the dark green being low, less than 0.5 pounds per acre, and red being high, greater than 5 pounds per acre. Both graphs are showing the distribution of these phosphorus loss categories. The left is by acreage, and the right is by total phosphorus loss. So if we look at the dark green bar, we can see that 53% of acres have less than 0.5 pounds per acre phosphorus loss, which is low. And because it's low, all that acreage only accounts for 16% of total phosphorus loss. Now, if we look at the flip side and look at the yellowish bar, we can see that 23% of acreage accounts for more than half of the total phosphorus loss. So most fields have low phosphorus loss, but those fields that have higher phosphorus loss are contributing more to overall loading. This graph has the same color-coded phosphorus loss categories, but the stacked bars are by crop rotation. We can see on the right, hay and pasture, permanent vegetation has more low phosphorus loss by those green bars, but there is some yellow, higher phosphorus loss. If we look at the left bar, which is annual cropland, we still see that annual crops can have low phosphorus loss. In fact, of the third of the acres are less than 0.5, and half the acres are less than 1 pound per acre. But the other half is above 1 pound per acre. So you can see it's higher than the other crop rotation categories. So obviously there is a range of phosphorus loss among crop rotations, as there are many other factors that the model is incorporating. So these two graphs are both in pounds per acre. On the left, we have the average phosphorus loss, again by crop rotation, and this is independent of the baseline. And on the right, we have the phosphorus reduction, which is dependent on the baseline. Both graphs are showing the same trend. More permanent vegetation, you have more low phosphorus loss and higher reductions. Here we're looking at total phosphorus reductions in pounds across the years. And VPFP is paying on the dark green, which is above that threshold. But we can also see that farms in this program have achieved many more phosphorus reductions by the light green. And both above and below the threshold reductions are increasing over the years. And this right graph is phosphorus reductions per acre. So we're accounting for any change in acreage across those years. And we still see that phosphorus reductions are increasing with farms enrolled in the program over time. And in fact, 80% of farms increased their phosphorus reductions between the first and last year enrolled. So what are farms getting paid? So here I have the average payment per farm per year, which is $21,700. It does range from zero. There were a couple farms that did not perform well enough to the standards of the program that did not get paid. And there it goes up to $50,000, which is the programmatic cap. So I have it broken out by farm size and type, just crop versus grass. And you can see the trends there. So larger farms have more potential with more acreage to get more reductions. And grass, has lower phosphorus loss, as we've shown in previous slides. So on the right is the average pay per acre per year, which is $54, again, ranging from 0 to $275 per acre. And here the farm size trends are reverse. So larger farms on a per acre basis are getting a lower payment simply because larger farms might have less grass in their rotations, and maybe not all their fields have all the practices that they need. So the trends are interesting that they are the opposite. Not surprising. But I just want to be clear, this program is paying $100 per pound of phosphorus reduced above the threshold, regardless of farm type or size. These trends are based on other factors such as size and the associated phosphorus loss. So again, we are paying on performance. So although we are paying on performance, we are tracking the practices implemented, which you can see in this graph here, all the various practices from nutrient management to cover crop to rotational grazing, and all the practice acres for the 3 years here add up to over 231,000 practice acres. And the reason we're getting so many practice acres is because of this program's whole farm approach, where we're tracking all practices occurring on all fields. So the average number of practices per field is higher. On an annual crop field, the average is 4 practices per field, and it could be as high as 6. Whereas other cost share programs typically only result in 1 practice per field and not all fields due to program constraints. So all these tracked practices are aggregated and sent to DEC for TMDL reporting, same as our other programs, which equate to an estimated 55,000 kilograms of phosphorus reductions across both the Lake Champlain and Lake Memphremagog basins, estimated by the TMDL accounting methods, not as modeled in APEX. So how does that compare? So this graph is looking at the percent of total TMD reductions across all sectors achieved in this example, fiscal year 24. So 80% of all reductions are occurring from the agriculture sector. 77% of reductions are occurring from the Agency of Agriculture's water quality programs, and 35% of reductions are occurring from just this VPFP program. So all three are major contributors to phosphorus reductions and meeting Vermont's TMDLs. So in summary, in terms of high-level results for the data I just presented, again, for just the first 3 years, over 3 million paid to farmers, an average of 21,000 per farm per year. A lot of phosphorus reductions have been quantified, over 100,000 in total, and then 35,000 pounds that this program is paying on for those above the threshold. 80% of farms increased their phosphorus reductions since enrollment. More than half the acreage has very low phosphorus loss at less than 0.5 pounds per acre. A lot of practice tracking is occurring on average across all field types, 2.5 practices per field. And all those practices are being aggregated and credited, if they're in the correct basin, towards Vermont's phosphorus TMDLs, which is having a significant contribution to meeting our TMDL. Thank you, and back to Jamie.
Thanks, Judson. It will be interesting to see how the 2025 results fit into the previous 3 years of data. Can everyone see my screen? So, okay, great. So this was a pilot program, and it was the first time this is being done. And so there were some unexpected challenges and lessons learned. First, the complexity of the program software led to a pretty steep learning curve of the program, and that, coupled with staff turnover, also led to some difficulties with information transfers and just year-to-year consistency for the farms. Budgeting for this program was very difficult. The payments are predicted, but they still can change significantly year to year because it is performance based. And interpreting the model results was not only difficult, but farm prep results provide a lot of information, which is awesome. But in order for it to be useful, it needs to be interpreted and communicated, which was pretty time consuming. And it didn't always, the results of the farm prep assessments were not always used to their maximum ability in helping farms make decisions. And there were also some trade-offs just with using a model. The model is super useful, but it still had some limitations, and there were some instances where the farm management didn't fit perfectly into the options available, and so there had to be some decisions made on how to best represent what the farm was doing. However, there were also many successes of the program. Improved nutrient management planning was one of them. This program required nutrient management plans, and really encouraged farms to be on top of getting that done. And the field by field results of the model led to identifying fields with high losses, which can then be targeted with conservation practices. So rather than guessing where the phosphorus loss is coming from and making decisions for the whole farm, farmers could really focus on just a few problem areas. And the model can run multiple different scenarios to help with planning. So, for example, if a farm is deciding whether or not to plant cover crop on a specific field or several fields, the model can be run to show the loss from the fields with a cover crop and without the cover crop to help support that decision when farms are late in the season, weather's being crazy, and they have to make a game time decision. That can be really useful knowledge on where farms need to really direct their efforts. And lastly, a major success of the program was the relationships built between farmers and the technical assistant staff at their conservation district. The technical assistance provided in this program opened up more opportunities for farmers to connect with their conservation district, and outside of this program, they were able to be connected to additional programs and resources from their district. We also worked with the Gund Institute for the Environment at UVM, and for almost a year, several researchers from Gund conducted interviews and surveys with both technical assistance providers and program participants. And they created a very long report on the program that overviews the program, evaluated performance in meeting stated goals, and also provided really helpful feedback on planning for the future of the program. And they provided a lot of recommendations and takeaways. And we're really grateful to the Gund for doing this. It gave us a lot of useful information that helped shape the future of the program. And here are a couple of just key takeaways from that Gund report, which we have. So if anyone is interested in reading the full report, we have that as well as a condensed 2-page summary. So just reach out if you're interested. And so a few of these takeaways were that most farmers said that they would re-enroll in this program if given the opportunity, which that's good news. So we're doing something right. However, there was also important feedback. So less than half of the respondents said that they were using the farm prep results to improve their approach to reducing phosphorus losses. And we would really like that to be much higher. We would like it to be 100%. So this was an area where we knew we needed to do some extra work. And I think my favorite quote from this report is that I think what the best thing that came out of VPFP is actually evaluating what you were doing and whether it was working. So what's next for VPFP? Well, we are going to continue, and applications will be opening on June 1st, and they'll be open until July 15th of this year. That's in 2 months from now. And we do recognize that this maybe isn't the ideal time of year for farms to be filling out an application, but because we'll be starting a new grant, this is just when it has to open.
NRCS, this is Sarah.
Hey, Sarah, it's Tom Rogers from
And the application will be pretty straightforward, very similar to the original pilot program application. There shouldn't be any major surprises in it. So we evaluated our original goals and came up with some new goals for the continuation of this program. And so the 4 new goals guiding this program are conservation practice tracking, participant satisfaction, behavior change, and sustainable program model. And while there are some major changes to the program, it overall is remaining the same pay for performance program that has existed. So it will still be using farm prep assessments, and there will be individual technical assistance providers assigned to each farm who enrolls. It will still require updated nutrient management plan, and yearly payments will still be tied to annual performance. So it will overall look the same as it has. However, some of the major changes that will hopefully improve participant experience is that there is no longer a historic baseline management assumption as part of the payment. There will be some new eligibility limitations to concurrent program enrollment. There is a new payment structure and an updated enrollment timeline. And so here is what the overall timeline will look like. After the application process, year 1 will be just a planning year. And so year 1 will be the opportunity for data entry and getting a farm have all of their data and management practices into farm prep, really emphasizing accuracy from the beginning. And this will come with a planned assessment that will give an idea of what their future payments could look like. However, the planning phase will be only payment for data entry as well as some practice payments. And there will be no performance payment in the planning year. If a farm continues into the implementation phase, then they will get continued technical assistance, yearly farm prep assessments, and a stewardship payment on top of that data entry and practice payment. And then there also in discussion might be a maintenance phase with a reduced payment for reduced requirements, but that is still in the works and it's still at least 5 years away. And so the new payment rates will be for data entry, $50 a field, capped at $3,000. And we're adding in a practice payment that will be the same rate as FAP, and this will be capped at $10,000. So that first year of enrollment in the planning phase will have a maximum payment of $13,000. In the implementation phase, those same data entry and practice payments will stay the same, maximum $13,000. And there will also be a stewardship payment, which is the performance-based payment. And this will be based on, as the farm approaches 0 pounds of phosphorus loss per acre, the payment will increase. And this will be capped individually at $30,000. And so during the implementation phase, the maximum payment per year will be $43,000. And Judson will go over the new stewardship rate that's with a linear increase.
You can keep sharing. Yeah. So these are some example numbers. And the left column, as a reminder, we are paying on edge of field loss in pounds per acre from what's modeled for the farm's current management. It has nothing to do with the baseline. We're throwing that out the window. And then the rate is increasing linearly. So as you can see, the payment rate numbers get larger as the phosphorus loss numbers get smaller, recognizing that there is greater value in lower phosphorus loss. And this change increases incrementally based on an equation. There are no tiers. So every change in phosphorus loss that's being modeled has an associated change in the payment rate. So we hope this will provide more incentive for improvement. You can also see that we are accounting for high phosphorus loss fields with a negative payment. So anything over 2 pounds per acre is going to detract from the farm's overall payment. So if you go to the next slide, please. We can assume, just carry this example forward, that the 5 rows are 5 fields of a farm. So we have to start with phosphorus loss pounds per acre. That determines the payment rate, assuming each field is 10 acres for simple math. You just multiply the acres times the rate, and that gives the field payment on the right. And then the farm payment, we're just adding up. So you can see, again, the same things that I just talked about, that high P-loss field in the first row, that's negative $1,000. That's lowering the farm's overall payment. So this is a holistic program in terms of crop hay and pasture. If the farm has high phosphorus loss fields, it's going to bring their overall payment down. And on the flip side, you can see the highest or lowest phosphorus loss per acre has a higher payment rate and a higher overall payment, so it's contributing more. So these are just example numbers. Again, it's based on an equation, but the key threshold is 2 pounds per acre. Anything above that is going to bring the farm down. And as the phosphorus loss gets closer to 0, the payment rate will be higher. So that's it for me. Yeah. Any questions or anything to the program?
Before we get to questions, I just want to chime in here, this random head floating with a name under it. I am Sumner Kravitz, and I am the program coordinator for this program. Jamie has been working with us for 1.5 years as co-coordinator and will be your main contact throughout the summer, since I will be on maternity leave from May through August. So I'm here to help answer questions, and I'm here until the beginning of May. But yeah, go to Jamie or Judson if you need anything. Just want to holler that I usually am around, but just while the application period is going on, I will be out of the office. Looks like we have a few questions from Rory in the chat. So I'm just going to list them off and then we can answer them. First question from Rory is, what kind of size farms do you recommend promoting enrollment in the program? And then this has been a mostly dairy farms and some beef. To answer that question, and then what about goat dairies? What about very small beef operations? Do you have an idea of the threshold for when it's likely the program won't be effective for a farm? Great questions. Yeah, at the beginning of, in 1.0, it was a call for any and all farms to apply to the program. We did find that after 4 years of running the program works for a specific or a few specific types of farms. Farms who are growing or crop, hay, or pasture that fall into those categories and that are typically on the larger side. So I would say most effective for people with 250 acres or more, the higher the acreage, the higher payment, because they were often achieving higher reductions just by the fact that per 100 pounds of PLOS above the threshold, they're getting paid. And then we did notice that like the stewardship payments could be a lot higher for a smaller farm than a larger farm. So we're interested to sort of see how that shakes out across different farm size in the second round, since the payment structure is more based on a stewardship payment and not based on pounds of PLOS like it was prior. So I would say we're not completely sure which farms or farm size or this program will work best for, but we have an idea of the trend based on the results of the first round. It was very difficult for farms who were really small or vegetable farms. The farm prep is not designed well, I will say, for small vegetable operations. And so it made it a little trickier.
Yeah. And I'll just add, I would say it depends on performance. So we had some large farms that were doing, no-till injection, cover crop, rotations, good management, capped out $50,000 every year. We had some small farms, if they're grazing, they're doing good rotational grazing, they're all grass. Moving forward, there is no reduction payment. It's all based on stewardship. So in actuality, your smaller grass farms could be doing well. Again, if they're smaller, they're not going to get as high a payment as a large farm, but they have just as much potential, if not more. So I would say it depends on management. If the farmer is doing good management, whether it's crop, hay, or pasture, they can do well in this program.
Thanks for that.
Except for veggies, that is true.
Yeah.
Farm prep does not work well for vegetable farms. I would not encourage vegetable farms to enroll, unfortunately.
We have another question from Myra, or I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Did you see any difference in the amount of P losses from organic operations versus traditional farms? I don't think so. We didn't, I mean, I never looked into the organic versus traditional comps in terms of P losses or payment rates. Judson, do you?
So it's not a metric that we collected, so we have no idea.
Yep. Simple answer. Another question from Sarah. I'm hearing some information about updates to this program. Are all the updates completed? Curious as to how they may affect our customers here at NRCS. So are all the updates completed? Yes, is the short answer. We are in the process of completing a contract for the technical assistance, and then we will be funding the program through state funds this go around. So there's a lot less to do in terms of contract between NRCS and the state of Vermont. But yeah, most of the decisions, to answer your question, I think have been made in terms of how the program will operate. I hope that answers that question. And from Claire, to clarify, farm participants are getting paid for the practices and then getting a performance payment on top of that. And is USDA paying both the practice payment and the performance payment? So again, like I just said, it's going to be a state-funded program this go around. So USDA, NRCS won't be paying for any of it. And yes, they are getting paid for practices. That's that $10,000 cap. That's really to replicate what a farm would be getting in FAP, because they're not going to be allowed to enroll in both FAP and VPFP. So all practice payments will be based on the rates that farmers know in FAP, up to $10,000. And then they will be getting a performance payment on top of that. That is what we call a stewardship payment, and that has a $30,000 cap at the linear rate that Judson described. Okay, next one. Renee, glad to hear about 2.0. Lots of farmers like the first version. Can you speak more to the current program enrollment limitations that was mentioned What does that mean? Any other program from the time they submit the application, specific programs, question mark. If a program signs up, if a producer signs up, do they have to remain in the program for 5 years? Is the payment rate for practices set or will change over the years? Lots of questions there. Happy to answer all of them. So I'm going to get to the enrollment limitations in a second. I think some of the easier questions, you do not have to stay in the program for 5 years. Phase 1 is the planning year, and that will be a 1-year grant. And then when a farm moves on to phase 2, they'll be written a grant for, I'm not sure yet. It might be 1 year, it might be 1 year, it might be 3 years. We haven't decided exactly the length of the grant time for that, but they won't be like locked in. They can drop out of the program whenever they want to. And then the payment rate for practices, I don't, that's a good question. If they change in FAP, they'll change in VPFP. We'll keep it consistent across state programs in terms of how much we pay per practice. And then to speak to the enrollment limitations, I'm going to pull up exactly what, just keep messaging consistent. However, to answer your question, we are basically saying that farmers cannot enroll in VPFP and another program that is paying for practices. That is state, federal, private, any program. However, we recently made an update to that in that the producer can enroll in phase 1, which is the planning year, while they're still enrolled in another program that overlaps in terms of paying for practices, so that they can get an idea of what their performance payment would look like in VPFP. The caveat there is that they will not be paid the practice payment in year 1. So farms who are just in VPFP in that planning year will get a data entry payment and a practice payment. If you're kind of testing the waters with VPFP in that planning year, you will not be and are also enrolled in a practice-based payment other than VPFP, you will not be eligible for the practice-based payment. So we're allowing people to enroll and see what their the future of their payment would be in the program, but we're not going to overlap the practice payments. And that's just in year 1. Year 1 for any individual farm. So whenever they enter their program, that first year they're in the program. I hope that makes sense, and I can list the practice overlaps, or we can, if Jamie, if you want to put them in the chat from the email I sent to farmers and TA providers last week, and I can get to it in a second if you can't find it.
It's practices that VPFP would pay for or FAP. So cover crop, no-till, rotational grazing.
Yeah, I just want to get the exact list in the chat so people know. Okay, Jennifer, if a farm is in their last year of an NRCS cover crop contract, can they still enroll? And how would a DEC RCPP reduction contract impact a farm participating? So if they're in their last year, Jennifer, like I said, I think I might have answered your question. They can still enroll in the planning year for VPFP, but they won't be paid the practice payment if they're getting paid on cover crop. And this is like a yes or no. It's black or white. We're not doing like they're only getting paid on cover crop, but they're going to be paid in VPFP on every other practice. No, it's just if you're being paid for a practice that overlaps VPFP in another program, you are not eligible for the practice payment in the planning year. You're only going to get the data entry payment, and then you can make a decision based on the results of the planning in your first year if VPFP is going to pay you more and it makes more sense for your operation. That applies to anything DEC RCPP related. Okay. Cool. Oh, Jamie, there we go. Awesome. Jamie has just put up the overlap in practices. So if a farm is in another program that's paying them on a practice that is not included in this list, we don't care, and they can be in VPFP. But if they're being paid on any of these practices in this list, they can't be in the program beyond year 2. Or year one, sorry. Wow, I just talked my head off. Anyone have any other questions or feel like I didn't answer something sufficiently? And Jamie and Judson, feel free to add anything.
I will say, since it was brought up, I've started looking at 2025 data. Um, the trends are the same that I presented on, ratio of phosphorus loss among field types and average payments. It's just the number for like amount of acres enrolled would be higher and phosphorus reductions would be higher. So the trends are the same in our last year. That it's not really going to change the results that I presented on.
Great. Julie, I think if we don't have any more questions, and Jamie, you don't have anything to add. Feel free to reach out. If a question comes up after this meeting, you can reach out to any one of the three of us or all of us. Again, I'll be out starting like the first week in May, and Jamie should be your main point of contact throughout the summer.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jamie, Judson, and Sumner. It was great to see so many questions in the chat. Feel like we've given enough time for people to raise their hand or put additional questions in the chat. So we'll end a little early. As I said, this had been recorded, so I'll add it to the VAWQP website, and I'll send out an email with the contact information if you have any additional questions about the Pay for Performance program. So thank you guys all for spending your lunch hour with us, or maybe you're going to have lunch after this. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks, everyone.